as I mentioned, we will send this out so that you can share this with other people on your team. You have it for yourself or for those that weren't able to attend. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Scott.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Scott.
Okay. For a moment there, I lost my mute and unmute controls. I'm not sure. Yeah, thanks everybody. We're definitely excited about this. I'm going to go through a little bit of the whys of what why we're doing the new reporting, a little bit of the transition, and then how we'll go through functionality, how it works, give you an idea. There's a lot of stuff to cover and really a lot of new features, and I don't know that we'll hit them all today. Jamie, Kale, Ryan, I'm going to lean on you guys too a little bit. If there's, feel free to interject at some point. If as I'm going through it, I'm missing something or you think there's some points I should hit, but I've got a little bit of a script here I'm going to try to run through to keep us on track. But so I'll go through that, and then at the end, we'll open up to questions and thoughts toward the end. So the new reporting, let's see if this is going to work here. Okay, so why the new reporting? And I think you've probably heard of anyone that's worked with us for any length of time. You've heard that there's some new stuff coming potentially. I think the why, if you've used some of the Thrive reporting and tried to make your reports on your own and do some of that, I think you'll understand, and you probably communicated to us some of the opportunities where you think it could be better. And as with other things in Thrive, we're always grateful for that. It's the stuff that makes the product better. It's your feedback and your ideas that drive it to become better. And so I'll go through some of these items, but from a user standpoint, if you had done reporting before and spent any time in it, if you're trying to make one, there wasn't a clear path, I don't think, for making reports. You could do one via Wizard. You could do new and almost do it from scratch and feel like you're writing code. And there were a number of ways to do it. And so that was one of the things we're trying to eliminate. I think consistency. So, if you built, if you use Thrive and you build filters to do searches and things of that nature throughout the application, and then you went to reporting and tried to do the same types of activities, like narrow down a report by some search criteria, you found it was difficult and not the same. So some of those types of things from a consistency standpoint. Really trying to help people succeed in making reports and less on having to maybe make formulas or try to pull in additional information. Report sharing, I think this one even goes with one that's a couple down from there too, is security. Sharing and security. Previously with the older reporting, you really didn't have a lot of flexibility. You would kind of give someone a whole bucket of reports like quality, for example, and you could give that to a role. But then that was about as granular as you could get from a sharing standpoint. And so somebody that would get those quality reports might see a number of things that maybe weren't pertinent if they only really had nonconformance, but in that bucket of reports came with it scrap or gauges or other information that was really just clutter from their standpoint. So that's, I think, greatly improved. Along with it, then better communication. So sharing, getting information to the right team members and even people that are maybe not often in Thrive. So being able to share a dashboard, for example, with somebody that maybe all they need is to see some metrics and reports. And so be able to share that well and easily from a communication standpoint. Just overall look and feel, and also just aligning it with the rest of the application. So that's some of the user things. There are technical reasons too. Periodically, some of you may have encountered where you pull up a report and you might have data but no image, where the chart itself broke down and there'd be an error icon. And so from a technology standpoint, we've eliminated kind of an extra, in the background for us, there's an extra piece of software that had to run, and we've eliminated that. So you shouldn't see those chart errors. Greater flexibility and control. The reporting tool now, I think, that we have will allow us a lot more flexibility going going forward. And so as you as the customers have more ideas on how reporting might enhance your team's communication and metrics reporting, there'll be more opportunities, I think, to execute those things. I think we were kind of a little bit in a box before and hindered on making changes that might benefit you. And then with that, also better security. That goes back up to the sharing, but just the ability from a technical standpoint to make that easier. So the goals are keep it simple, but offer advanced functionality. So try to get someone to the path of success of making reporting and, helping yourself get to the destination of making reports a lot more efficiently, but then also still having some of those advanced features if you need them. Some of that may still require contacting us for assistance, but really trying to get people to successful metrics reporting and on their own quickly. One way to create a report, that goes back to, I'd say, some of the confusion around, I've got a report wizard, I can pop open a report and use these filters, but then I could open a wizard and use filters. So really trying to make one way to make a report. Minimize user decision making, so less, friction, I guess, in trying to decide how to do the reporting. Align experience with the rest of the application, so the look and feel, filters, those kind of things, feeling the same. Another one is really the backward and forward compatibility. So dashboards, reports that you already had, not having to change them. And I think we've succeeded very well in a lot of that. There's just a couple minor areas we'll talk about during this where you might have to make some changes to some of your reports. And then performance. It's not that the old reporting is necessarily slow, but I think this does leverage some things from a technology standpoint that will make it faster. All right, so let's take a look. I've got a couple windows open. I'm going to go in both as admin and then as another user. I'll start with the admin version of this. What we did here with this scenario, what I'm going to be going through is really right after the transition. So assuming we just took your system and reporting and ran the latest update, that's the state that this is in. So it's as close as possible to being, hey, I just was in version 2 reports and now I'm version 3. So what's going to be different? And so this hasn't been created with a bunch of canned newer reports. This is really taking everything you may have had previously. So that's what we'll see in our demo here. So this is actually some of our demos. If you've ever sat through one of our demos, the demo data that we often use. So first off, where is it? Well, but previously there were dashboards and reports here, and that will still be true. There'll be this dashboard window that'll toggle through randomly just some dashboards that some reports from one of your dashboards. That what it does isn't any different, but it's just the newer reporting in there. And then the report window here, which shows, as it did previously, reports you have, but now they're in buckets, and so, or folders, I guess. So one of the things that happens is in the transition from the old reporting is reports that you had previously in HR, safety, quality, maintenance will find their way immediately into folders. So human resources, inventory, maintenance. So that's where they'll land after the transition. So this is part of what's going to help make us all a little easier to manage. The reporting menu item you'll see over here is still going to live here for now. This will probably transition away over time because ultimately this will land in the same place as what these report folders show. So this navigation will ultimately go away, with the goal being that your reporting access will come via this link here where it says reports, dashboards from here, or alternatively, one of the things throughout the application is to be able to access those things quickly via the top menu. So that way, anywhere when you're in Thrive, you could access reports in your dashboards from right within, or from that top navigation. So I'll start with just going to the report listing. So again, I could do that from here or here. This one is available throughout. This one's available from the home screen. But if I click on this, it's going to take me to my report list. So again, all of the things that you had before in buckets would still be there. Things that are uncategorized are likely reports that you've created and that were just broadly created. They weren't given a category, because you could create reports in version 2 with basically no category. Those will show down here at the bottom. a little note about the images and what's going on here. So there actually is a little help down here at the bottom that says, what do these icons mean? So anything that has a blue image is something that you created. And so when you see that icon, you can know that, hey, that's something I made directly, that you were responsible for creating. Other times when you see an Earth, it probably means it's shared. So all these reports down here I made aren't shared. There's no globe next to it. But the items here that are folders, which were previously on the menu, so like continuous improvement reports over here, is over here with a globe on it. And it's because previously you probably managed through form security, giving access to people to reports via form security. Well, now I know that this is shared with other users as a result of seeing that icon there. So here's all my reports. We'll talk through eventually how sharing is done, both with reports and folders and dashboards. On the right side, I have all the dashboards that I've ever had. So these are dashboards that I made previously. They came from version 2. And as I mentioned at the start, all of those were came over, like when we switched this system over from version 2 to version 3, those dashboards immediately convert with the same names and same reports on them. In fact, one of the things that I can do is expand to see what is on those, which reports are on those dashboards. So I can see at a glance what I'm going to see when I go visit those dashboards.
Hey, Scott?
Yeah.
It's Mike at JA. So the reports that aren't in a folder, can you drag those into a folder now?
Yes. So good question. Yeah, there is some drag and drop functionality. So if this first shift downtime as an example, which is again one I created, currently not shared with people, one quick way to get it to somebody would be to drag this into, say, continuous improvement. And now it's in there. And since you asked that question, I'll just continue with that thought. What are the benefits here? So now anyone that has continuous improvement will now see this because I put it in that shared folder. Even better, I could make a new folder and maybe we'll call it First Shift Team. And if I had some team members that I wanted to share certain metrics with, I can make this folder, share this with specific people. So I'm going to pick her because I'm going to use her later. And she can now view any reports.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Mike, do you mind muting anybody that doesn't have their mic muted? Do you mind muting it, please? Or maybe it's Jason.
Hello?
Hey, Jamie, do you want to mute? Maybe you can
Yeah, I will do that.
Close this? Yeah, maybe. I'm just trying to. What were we talking? We were just talking about something.
There you go. All right. So yeah, so now this First Shift Team folder, in fact, if I come back over as the other user that I was signed in as, and I go, to her reports, I would now see that shared folder with that metric in there. Now, granted, this person already had access to the continuous improvement folder anyway, but that First Shift Team one is directly shared now with that item in it. So this is where it gets significantly more flexible because you can really target. You could unshare this at the high level. So one thing that would happen is at the continuous improvement level here with the sharing, these came over. So this is stuff again from version 2 where you had done some setup for sharing reports previously. That stuff carried over. Well, you could go in and delete all these at the top level and then be more specific within reports on a lower level bucket, for example. So like First Shift Team. So yeah, that's a good question. You can drag and drop. The other thing you could do too is maybe on my main dashboard, I already have it on there. So maybe that's not a great example, but maybe on CI, I want to drag this First Shift downtime. I can drop that onto a dashboard and that'll appear over there. So let's just do that. So I'll pop over to this. So one thing you notice, here's one of the transition items, and I left this as is just to show you this. This dashboard was built in version 2 originally and used the chart type of small or for the dashboard sharing type. small is one of the things that doesn't transition super well because they're so tiny, basically. And so that's one of the items where, you know, to get them to appear a little bit better, you're probably going to have to do a little resizing to get some of those charts to appear better. But it was one of those areas where we felt like many of the dashboards are shared in medium, which is the standard default size. But with some quick changes, you could make them bigger again. And really, you could leave them smaller. You don't have to change them, but obviously some of these just get hard to look at when they're that small. And they were even previously with the font size and stuff, they got really small when they were that small. So, and also the dashboard I just drug, or that report I just drug onto here is listed now on this with first shift downtime. And so I can see that here. So I kind of jumped away from the general reporting area, but that's just to give you an idea, I guess, of one of the ways you can get to your dashboards is from your main reports area and also manage your dashboards. You could rename them from here too. So if you want to rename the maintenance dashboard to something else, you can do that here. Similar with folders, you can rename them. Let's talk maybe a little bit about sharing. So one of the requests over time, I think that we heard often is, oh, I see a question, which I'll go ahead and take that because it's related to what we're just talking about. Does the security access cross over into what individuals can see in the reports? Yes, it does. And in a way, that's a lot like it was in version 2, meaning, but it's probably actually even a little bit better. But before, if I had access to, let's say, goal board data, I could see the goal board data. If I had on a report that had goal board data, I could see that data. And if there was a column that I wasn't supposed to see, it wouldn't show up in the report. And that's still true today. So if via form security, you've hidden information or those types of things, that will still be true. Now, there is a little bit of exception. And one of the ways that Thrive has become a little more flexible in this is a problem with a goal board report, for example, in the past was that if you didn't have access to goal boards, but somebody wanted to share a metric with you, you couldn't do it. You had to give them access to that part of Thrive in order to see it. In this case, so like this first shift downtime report that we just looked at, if I didn't have access to goal board data, but someone shared this report with me, I could see the report as is. I can't modify it. So however, in whatever state it was that it was shared with me is exactly how I can see it. I can't filter it. I can't change columns. You know, it's really just here's something I wanted to share with you, and they can't modify it. So that's one of the bigger differences. It makes it a little easier to not have to give everyone some level of access to parts of Thrive, because you can very specifically just share a report with someone, they can see it and not have to go through the effort of creating a role for them and creating some new level of permissions. So that part is a little more convenient. Hopefully that helps answer that question. I see another question. I'm gonna go on, and then I'll possibly get back to that one. And Jamie, if you could remind me at the end if there's stuff that we should cover. So let's see, back to this. Let's talk, I think, about, so talk a little bit about where to access this stuff, you know, from here. So the other way you can get the specific dashboard this way, if you go to dashboard here like before, it starts with your main dashboard and defaults to that. So whatever you had as your main dashboard before, and then of course shows all of the other dashboards that you may have made previously. But let's talk a little bit about making a new report. So how do you make one? We come back to the reports area, generally speaking. Just basically, I'm looking at this wide open from whatever I have access to. On new reports here, I can pick from a template. So we've started to make some templates. We're going to do a little bit of work to bucket these to a little better, almost like in folders like they are in the list. But right now, you'll see some of the broad templates that you might use. And my list here as administrator is large. However, if I was in as another user, my template list is going to be smaller based on, again, the parts of Thrive that I might have access to. So I might pick something, a template. In fact, let's just do that. I'm going to do that under this account again, which is not the administrator account. And let's just do a general work order report. And if here I can type too, like in other areas of Thrive. So I'll find a general work order report template, and I'm going to create a new report. The the first thing it's going to prompt me for here, and this is where, again, we try to align some things with Thrive, is what columns do I want to see? So just like column selection in other areas of the application, I can go through and decide, well, I'm going to see things like work order number, and you can double click or drag. So I double click that one. Probably a description would be good. I suppose a department, maybe downtime if that was of interest, date requested. So I'm just going to grab some columns here, maybe equipment. So this is, you know, you could accomplish this in the old version 2 reporting, and it was similar, but it wasn't the same as the rest of the application. But one of the, I think, bigger benefits here that we'll see here in a second is when I hit update and it actually drops those columns on the report. This is one area where it behaves like the rest of Thrive, in that if you had, in the old reporting, as an example, if you pulled an equipment number, you only got the equipment number and you didn't get the description. But if you used to use it the rest of the application, normally when you see the equipment number, you'd get the description with it. And that's one area where this helps with that. So before, maybe if you'd done it, you'd written formulas or try to pull in other information or other tables. And that was one area where we really tried to make sure, hey, get it so that you can see some of the things that you saw previously. So I just pulled in some columns down here. Next thing I'll talk about, I guess, is filtering. So this is where we also try to align how you used to seeing filtering in other parts of Thrive. There are a couple different filters down here, and I'll explain them. The standard filtering, if you're making a report, and it shows this when you hover over it, is this is like fixed criteria that if somebody else was using this report, you wouldn't want them to change, and they can't change unless they're a report owner. And so if I wanted definitively to say, hey, I want everything that has, let's go with status. Let's do that. That for sure I want all status. I wonder if that's hidden. That's interesting. Well, we're going to go find out here. I'm going to do it under the admin and see if that's for some reason hidden. All right, well, we're going to go fix that. On security. So I'll go back to this. So we won't use status, but we'll just say anything that has a completion date, because that would mean I wanted to look for things that were completed. So anything that is a completion date is not blank. And that's just an absolute for this report. I'm just saying, hey, I want everything on this report to have a completion date. And then that's something, as you make that, other users can't touch. Now, you may put something over here that you'll allow them to modify, and maybe it's something like, you know, department is one of or something. So, and this is where this aligns well with the rest of filtering. So if you try to make an old report filter and you try to do departments, you'd start guessing. You'd have to know ahead of time what it is. Well, in this case, if I know it's press room and lasers and whatever, I have some information to help me there, where it has that smart text to be able to help me build the report and filter. Let me see if I can get that status.
Well, Scott's pulling that up. Just one comment for those on the call that are newer to Thrive or just getting started with your Thrive system. Scott's looking at this as building the report or transferring reports over, but there's also hundreds of canned reports that come in Thrive, and those will move over. Those will be part of the system so that you can, you know, just click and open a standard one instead of actually, you know, building one like this. There will be those pre-populated or kind of out of the box canned reports, just like today.
But it had just been renamed to Progress. If you saw me do that, it was called Progress instead of Status. So, okay. So status is one of complete or closed. It's really what I care about in this case. So now I'm looking at, I've narrowed my list down here to 118 items. I'm actually going to change this department filter down to, I want to see anything completed, and this is actually one of the other changes with this. Yeah, previously you're a little limited on your date choices. Now you can say in the last X number of days and specify that, and I'll leave it at 365. I'm fine with that. But it's a little more flexible in terms of picking a number of days or time period as an example. Now let's, so I've done some of this with some of these options on this screen, but where are all of my kind of report options? Well, they're all on this configure report button here. And this configure report is kind of, and I'll collapse this tree a little bit to clarify. It gives me control of general report properties, which we'll look at when I say it, but that's just the name of the report and where I'm going to share it. The chart information, which I'm about to do here, and then the text-based report on the bottom, which the fields we've already defined, and those are listed on here. So this thing gives you some an overall view of what's on your report. I'm going to set a category here quick, and I'm going to say, let's see everything. I want to see all my, how many work orders are completed by month. And this is also a little bit easier here because I have those options built into this. So I'm going to say completion date by month. And just by specifying a category, I've already got some data here. And what that's based on actually is, it's just taking account of the number of items completed by month. But I could be a little more specific if I wanted to and say, well, I want a total, I don't know, maybe actual total cost instead of just account. And I don't know if I'm not tracking a lot of costs, so we might go back to account here in a second. But that's how you grab a chart total is you pick what field it is you want to do, and it defaults to summary or to the total, but you could change that to an average or account. I'm going to remove that and let's go back to account of projects. We'll go based on work order number. Let's just do a count of those. And now it's back to how it looked just a moment ago. So at this point, I kind of already created a little bit of a report. I'm going to save this right now. And here's where I can pick to save it to a folder. Now, right now, she hasn't made any folders, and so we'll save it to basically no folder right now, and then we'll see how she can manage this in a second here. But she's now saved this report, but she's really the only one that can even see it. Ernestine here is. Let's go back to her report list to just see what she now sees. So previously, she just saw these folders. Now she's got this report here. She can now make a folder on her own. So this is one of the big differences too. You know, there was not a mechanism for users to easily manage reports. Make a folder, my maintenance metrics. She can pop that report into that folder. And then also at this point, she could choose to share this folder with other users. And maybe I'll just, well, yeah. She could type in users here, inventory demo, let's do that. And that person can just view it. Now, I think I'm going to go into a question, I think that was asked, I just thought, and Jamie answered, or said, well, I'll answer in a minute, is what if, in this case, the question is about what if the person is gone, who can now modify that report? And really, this is the problem with version 2 reporting in general, is anytime somebody else touched the report, they could modify it, but then it always have to save as a copy. And so you'd end up with a mess of 10 reports with the same name that were all versions of the same report. And this significantly eliminates much of that pain, because now you and I could work as users, could work on the same report as long as I call that person out as an owner. And that means they are now able to, or even can update the report. And then that way, you don't end up with 10 copies of the same report that everyone's done a save as of. That person can now modify it. So for a person that's left the company, is one of the examples I saw, and the report can't be modified, the administrator, an administrator can go in and see that and make a new owner of that report. And then that way you can manipulate that. Now, if you have access to it, not everyone can see this one. All users can see this share with other users option. If you're someone that does able to manage security a little bit in roles, I could also share this with like a maintenance. Apparently I don't have maintenance roles. Oh, Ernestine can't manage that one. She can manage some. So she can manage the quality technician roles. That's why she could see this. So she could share it with specific roles. As long as somebody's able to administer that portion of Thrive, they'll see this roles box here. While I'm at it on the sharing topic, this is all, so let's drop now our sample webinar report onto my main dashboard, and then go visit my main dashboard. And now I've got the sample webinar report right on here. And right in line with sharing, I can share this whole dashboard with somebody. So in fact, let me just share this back to the administrator. Well, she may not be able to share with the administrator. Well, let me go the other direction and let me share from the administrator account. Let me share my maintenance dashboard with her. So this maintenance dashboard, which has some metrics on it, and if I wanted to share that entire thing with somebody, I could share it with her by doing that. And now when she visits her dashboard page, she's going to see that maintenance dashboard, and it indicates that it's not her dashboard because of this icon and who actually shared it with her. So the admin demo shared that dashboard with her. And so then she can see those dashboards or this dashboard, but can't modify it. Oh, and some of those reports she doesn't. This is where she doesn't have access to the portions of Thrive where that data lives. We're going to change something with that, so I don't have to go share those reports individually. If I do share the entire dashboard, she should be able to see it all. So right now she can't see those, but we shouldn't have to individually share those reports or that data with her. I believe if I shared the entire maintenance bucket of reports, she'd actually see those. Yeah, the issue is here, she doesn't have the maintenance bucket of reports, and so those metrics are hidden from her. Let's see. So dashboards, we talked about sharing, filter. Okay, let's talk a little bit about drill down. And we'll use Ernestine's sample report here for this. So drill down is something that people are used to with the old reporting that still exists, and with some enhanced functionality. One thing that you can do with, let me change, I'm going to do this. So I've got my category here, and it's grouped by, completed work orders by month. I'm going to add a subcategory, and I'm going to do, let's do work order type. And you'll see now what that did. I'll close this for just a moment. That now groups in April items by their type. So breakdowns, PMs, projects, or the different types that were completed. I'm going to change my chart type so that it actually looks about the same as it did just a moment ago in terms of volume of work completed in each month to a stacked bar chart. And so now I can see first items completed by month, and then what work order type of those items. So I've done a subcategory on my main category here to see some additional data. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And here's where drill down. So before you had to actually set up some drill down, and you still can, where you drill down to a different report altogether. Maybe I've got a reason code report if it's downtime and I want to drill down by reason code. However, every report really comes with some built-in drill down simply by clicking on the bars. So if I click on this bar here, this March bar, it's going to drill down directly on this report. So it's not taking me to another report, but it's drilling down on the month of March, and then narrowing down the work orders to what items were those that were completed during the month of March. And so immediately you get some drill down capability, which is really convenient for narrowing down if you're looking at this and you're wondering, well, I have one yellow item, it's a project, and I click on November and I want to find that project. Even better, if I remove that criteria there, if I right click on it, I have some more options. The default behavior is to click on both, or just the first item here. But if I want to filter on November and the project type, I can do that, and it takes me down directly to those projects that were related to that. So it's a little more enhanced drill down. Let's go to, so I'll save that. Then go back to my report list here. Oh, which I also could have done by clicking on the reports tab there. One of the other things I could see on here is I have a whole bunch of non-conformance reports. Some of these might actually drill down to other reports. And to see that, there's an options here, and I can say show drill down reports. And it will show you the hierarchy if you've built some drill down of what will it drill down to. So cost by part will drill down to NCR cost by reason code. nonconformance by supplier, we'll drill down to nonconformance report by part number so I can see what layer it is. Let's take I'm going to pop open a couple of these here that have that drill down. That looks pretty good. Let's try that. Okay, so here I have one that has actual drill down to another report on it. And if I were to, and when I right click on this, I have two options. So if I click on the bar now, it's going to do what you're used to, which is going to drill down to the other report if you've done that in Thrive version 2 reporting, which in this case, it's going to nonconformance by part number. And like before, I can drill back up one report level. So I really have navigated to a different report when I click on that drill down to see more information behind it. However, here I have the additional option of maybe I don't want to drill down to the nonconformance by report by part number on this specific one, but I do want to just filter here locally. That way I have the option to stay right here and filter down to those items that are related to that supplier in this case. So that's a little more flexibility in how the drill down works. Okay, let's go back to, I'm going to go to the one report I made a second ago under maintenance metrics. Let's go back to this and talk about another area where there's some flexibility. So within charts, I have my chart total here, which is a work order number count. And remember at the start, I talked about goals being trying to get someone to success in making a report quickly. And so a lot of the advanced options we've hidden because the goal is just, hey, I want to make, give me a count of work orders by month. And so we've done some things to get there pretty quickly. However, I might want to do something like establish some goals on this chart here for how many work orders I expect to be completed by month. And so to do that on my chart totals, I can click the more options. So this is where I establish I'm going to do a count of work orders. And under more options, I get a number of things. And this is some of the stuff you may have seen in the old reporting where there's field names and you might try to build a formula. But really in this case, I want to establish a target or a goal on this chart. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to say from what range, so it's saying set goals for which axis. In this case, it's the primary one. It's the only one I have right now. And from what value to what value and what color do you want to display? So I'm going to say from 0 to 1 is actually going to be red. That's not really where I want to be. And then I'm going to add another goal and we'll say it's from 1 to 2. And that's better. I'm going to make that yellow. And then I'm going to say another one, and we'll just go with 2 on up to 10 is fine. And we'll say that's where I want to be by month. So I'm establishing here is when I view this, this is going to put some target ranges on my chart. So I'm going to save this and update that. And now I have a visual. So a lot of times when you look at metrics, the question is, well, what's better? Is a bigger number better or is a lower number better? And this helps to keep that or make that visual to say, well, our target, we hope to be more than 2 work orders per month. And that's how you can establish those color bands. So this is one of the things that was not convertible from version 2 reporting. So if you established a goal line before, the one downside with that was it was purely a line. So if I established a line of 2, I could put a line on here and it was a goal, but I really didn't know if above or below that line meant good or bad. It wasn't necessarily a meaningful goal line. It was just a line. Well, this color bands, since it's not, you don't get the goal line that you had before, it's a little more flexible, a little more visual in terms of representing what is the target you're actually shooting for. Additionally, one other thing I'm going to mention on that advanced options, if I go back to the axis here, so here's where I set my target and goal. On the axis here, I can give it a title, and maybe this is, number of work. And that's simply giving it, I'll save that, save this. That just puts on this axis over here, what is that actually that I'm looking at? So it's the number of work orders that I want to see. One other thing I'm going to throw on here actually is also show you some more, a little bit more flexibility with this. Actually, I'm going to do a save as. So I'm going to save this report as it is right now. here's another thing that's maybe a little different is I can save this report, and to make a copy of a report, I can do a save as. So I'm going to do sample webinar report 2. I'll leave it in my metrics folder here. I just want to modify this a little bit. So let me go back to where I had no subcategory, and I got my goal lines. I'm going to add another chart total on here. Remember I pulled in cost before, and it wasn't super useful, but let's just try something like that. Let's pull in actual total cost. And this is going to default to sum. I have work order, which is still on count, and that's fine. So what's interesting here is now that I've got this, and you may have run into this before with version 2 reporting, I have costs which are completely dominating the chart now. I still have work order completions, but they're so small relative to the scale of my costs that it's not useful. And so what you can do is, if I go back to configure report and my work order number, if I go back to my advanced options down here, right now I just have one axis and the target and goals associated with that. However, here's the opportunity to make another axis. So I can add a second axis and call it costs. And number is fine for my axis format. I'll save that. And then my work order number, I'm going to leave. So I've got right now selected my work order count here. I'm going to leave that on my primary axis, which is number of work orders. And my actual total cost, I'm going to move to my new one, which is my cost axis, and update that. Work order, primary, cost. Here. Oh, let's try something here. There we go. And now I've got that one going. Oh, let's do that one. Hold on. Total cost. Should have a line. Oh, here's what I need to do. I want to change that to. I want to change my this axis. I want to change my total cost to be a line also. So right now that total cost is defaulting to a stacked bar also. So it's trying to stack that with that. But I'm going to switch that to a line. So it's a different one on the cost axis. And there we go. That's what I was trying to get to. So that I can, on a separate axis where now this is 1,400 and this is only 3 completed work orders on that month, I have costs, which are a line chart type, and then my bar, which is my work orders completed by month. And I can still see representationally my goals for the number of work orders. So just a little more flexibility in creating different chart types and plotting 2 types of data points on the same chart. I think I'm gonna pause here. I've covered a lot of stuff. Jamie, Kale, Ryan, things you think I should cover, other questions I should be hitting that I haven't actually seen in the chat?
Yeah, I'll answer the question Roger had about filtering, and if you want to read Bob's question in the chat while I answer that.
Sure.
So Roger, the filtering is going to function the same way in the new reporting as it did in the old reporting. So if you have a location, you can take this report and you can hit filtering and you can change it to, you know, Lennox in your case, or, you know, whatever specific location you want within your company. And then that you'd essentially save as a report that's filtered down to a specific location or plant. If you're a company that has multiple site licenses, what's nice about this, and this was true in version 2 as well, but if you create a dashboard, so let's use goal boards as an example, and maybe you want to put productivity reports for yesterday onto a dashboard by site, for instance. This is my overall site. Well, if you have another site that's on your system, they can open up the same report and it'll filter automatically by site. So the only auto filtering built into before or now is the site. So if you have multiple site licenses, it automatically opens those reports up accordingly. Scott, you might also show within this how you can refresh and some of those other new features with some of the reports. I know Serge in particular has looked at that.
Sure. sorry, actually, I was reading some of the other questions. What was it you wanted me to show quick? Sorry.
How you can set up a report on a dashboard to refresh.
Oh, yes. Okay. So under the other options, so there's a lot of things we haven't even talked about on here, and some of these are probably self-explanatory a little bit, like do you want the legend, where do you want that located, and you can put it on the left or not at all. And then you could change chart types to these different styles that just really change the colors of some of the chart. But one of those things is refresh every number of minutes. So if I want this, if I put this on a dashboard, this saves a lot of pain that people have talked about and if I simply say refresh every 1 minute and then save this and add it to a dashboard, which let me talk about that again briefly. So I'm going to go back to Ernestine's main dashboard here. I'm going to make a new one. And this one, I made a new one called webinar. It has no reports on it. And this one here, which is the one I just did a save as of, but I have yet to put it on a dashboard. I'm going to put it on the webinar one. And when I do that, it tells me it's added. And also I can see that it's on there. And in fact, I can put it on the main dashboard too. And now there'll be checks on both of those. So you also know, where does this report exist on my dashboards? Now, if I refresh this dashboard, it'll be on here. And I'm not going to hang out long enough to see it, but in a minute or once every minute, that chart will refresh. So I know some people, Serge, I think you've done it. There's some folks that have found creative ways to get that to do that on with other tools, but this actually will allow you to build in a refresh interval on reports that might need to be refreshed regularly, especially as more and more people are displaying metrics on large screens on the shop floor. That becomes fairly useful. I'm going to scan down some other things here quick. So permissions, you can modify permissions of the report right from here, provided again you have access to it. Delete report, this is where you delete a report, is done from here. We could look at some of the chart options. Okay, exporting was a question, is a great one. And yes, that's available. So there's a few things you can export. This was already there. Oh, and you just saw the chart refresh. But export chart image, if I do this, it's going to give me, ask me to save to my desktop this image, which now, if I pop open that, it's that chart that I just had on there, and I can copy and paste that, send it, do whatever with it. But you can export the chart itself. The data of the chart, this is something unique that wasn't there before in version 2 either. I can actually export the chart data. So if I hit this, it's going to pull it out to Excel. And I will get that chart data. If I open that, I'm actually going to see, my costs and costs in work orders by month, so that I get the actual chart data, if that's useful. Another part is, what about the actual data down here? 2 ways you can do that on the text report, just like on other options on the chart. There's this other options down here, which is export data, is one way. And that's going to pop that open into Excel, just like you're used to seeing in other parts of Thrive. I don't need to do that. It's also available just by right-clicking and export data down here. It's the exact same thing. It's going to pop that open in Excel. Also, one thing that you're used to with the old reporting is I could add, to add the chart to the dashboard, it's up here, but I could also add the text part of the report to a dashboard. And that's done in the other options down here. So I could go to the webinar dashboard, and now that's been added. So that if I go back to this and refresh, I not only have the chart on there, but now I've got the supporting data on a dashboard as well, if you want it. So I was related to exporting. Trying to think what other options. And there are a couple other questions. Let me see. There was a question about external data, I believe is the question. And we're doing more and more. This is one of those areas in the roadmap where it's greatly simplified now or not, I don't know about simplified, but the roadmap is there to start connecting to what wasn't really easily possible before, but to start connecting to other data sources as well. There are some ways to kind of do that today, but some changes that we're making with this reporting will make that even easier. So if you need to report off other data sources, then that will start to be available. Are there other questions I missed?
There's no other questions on there. Maybe we'll open it up for conversation. Maybe take 1 minute, Scott, since we're getting tight on time, and just show the roadmap on the demo there on how you could click within an area of Thrive and see your reports.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If I'm in NCR.
It's a great point. So one of the goals is trying to be, you're not always trying to make a report from the reports area, and you might be in, let's say, work orders. So if Ernestine is in the actual work order area of Thrive here. Okay. And you're at this point, and now you're thinking, I want to make a report, or I want to see reports. Well, one of the things we've done is we're going to start doing more with making that directly accessible in the area you are within the application. So this isn't everywhere yet, but we put it in some projects areas and non-conformance and some other areas. But if I hit open reports here, this immediately narrows down to reports that I have related to this part of Thrive. So those 2 reports I just made are right there. The other thing it does is if I make a new report, it's going to show me just templates that are related to work orders. So I've already narrowed that down. And I could also make just a general work order report from scratch. So it's telling me that here as well. So it's just to start to make more what I would call contextual based reporting, where you're in the part of the application where you want to make or see your reports. Same thing, in non-conformance here. I'm heading there right now where I can pop open my list, see what reports I have that are non-conformance related, and then make a new report based on non-conformance. So hit this, open reports. This is narrowing down to all my non-conformance reports for me already. These are things I might care about. Make a new report. I'm going to have a template or 2 to pick from. And then also I could just make a general non-conformance report from scratch. So that's a great point to bring up, Jamie, on that.
Question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of times I'll run a report, something doesn't look right. I'll look at the data and there's an error in the data. Is there any way to fix that?
Well, not knowing specifically, I guess, what the error was, or, if it's
typically,
editable.
Typically in floor reporting, right? They reported,
a quantity
2 million
error
instead of 2,000 or something.
Sure. The only way to do something like that today, so that I'm assuming that came via Goalboard, and then they keyed in
Correct.
a number, and it would have to be corrected via the Goalboard, via the mechanism that you do to adjust the total, which is usually to decrease it by some amount, right? So add a negative quantity basically with Goalboards. Today, there isn't really a mechanism to actually delete that data point, especially with Goalboards. In other areas, there are, like if you misreport downtime on, say, a maintenance work order, you can obviously adjust that via the work order. Goalboards, the quantity reported number isn't really editable directly, other than to add a negative entry or to delete units from the Goalboard. So the misfire would still be on there, but the total would be, you could still adjust. In today's world, that's probably a little bit separate, maybe from reporting, and more of an opportunity to do something different with the Goalboard data.
Scott, there's a question from Serge. Can we add values to bar chart and make them stay?
That's in our roadmap. So I believe, I think what you're probably referencing is, let's see if I have this one open still. So like right now where I hover and it says 6, I'm assuming you're saying to show 6 just there automatically, maybe. Is that correct, Serge? Yeah. So that's on our roadmap. It's not, today you still have to hover to see those actual values, but having more flexibility with the labeling is in our roadmap.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to hit a few more things related to that. Whoops. So again, greater flexibility, and there's more potential with this. Timeline slider. So on a chart where you have like a timeline, I'm showing on the lower right here, where you actually could take a slider across the bottom. Some of you have seen some of this because we've built some custom things for you that involve a slider like that. the idea is to build that into general reporting. Gauges, so being able to do gauges, visual gauges like this, trend lines as well. Formula wizard, so from a data standpoint, helping people, instead of having to, know some magic about creating formulas, really trying to help people through that. Connecting to other data sources, we talked about that a little bit. Dashboard related, being able to add any Thrive application page. So that would be meaning if I was on a dashboard here and I wanted to see, a list of the goal boards. So maybe, if I was running a bunch of, I don't even have access to it under this account, but if I was viewing goal board data and I wanted to see that page or the list of maintenance work orders, basically any part of Thrive you could add onto a dashboard. Like I just want to see this list of non-conformance, but on a dashboard. That's part of the roadmap to be able to add pages to Thrive. More templates, drag and drop, doing more with things like drag and drop where we saw like moving folders and really potentially even drag and drop to create reports or charts, excuse me, and some other things. But there's a lot of stuff that we have. I think once you guys start using it, we'll probably end up with more ideas, which we look forward to. I mean, that's the fun part about it is we getting people in there and seeing what's possible and what ideas come up. I think that is it. And thank you for your patience in version 3 reporting. I know some of you have heard and been anticipating seeing it, and we're grateful that you can now have the opportunity to use it after waiting for some time.
Scott, we have about 1 more minute. If there's anybody have questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What about like our old reports? They're all gonna eventually transfer to the new ones, or we'll be able to use the both? So
the old reports are immediately transferred. I mean, these are, so whatever reports you have made. So for example, if I go back to this account here, whatever reports that were available before in the menu, so if they would have had under quality, all these reports that would have been there before are still there. They're just automatically bucketed in some categories like gauges and non-conformance and projects. But every report should carry over. Now, the thing that we've Jamie mentioned at the outset, we've been testing with some people. We've tried to, we've made a lot of old reports in version 2, and we've tried to make sure that all of the version 3 stuff is compatible with those. We may run into, as you start to use it, hey, this report has some quirky thing that's not working. And those are the kind of things that we may have to uncover. But like I mentioned early on, our goal was to be as backward compatible as possible, meaning if you made a version 2 report, that it would work in version 3. There's a few exceptions like goal lines, like I mentioned in there, but we really tried to make sure that if you had something before, it works when you make this transition.
No, the reason I'm asking, because right now I can see both on my dashboards. I actually can play between like old format and a new format. So like
yeah.
Old format will disappear, right?
The old one will disappear, correct. So yeah, if you have, and I know this is true for some people that have been working with us during this testing phase, if you had a dashboard that had, say, and this may not be a good example, this one, like maybe this top one on your dashboard is a version 2 one, but this bottom one is version 3. After the transition, they'll all be version 3. In fact, this one I had on here, as an example where I showed these small ones, all these small little charts. Just yesterday, those were all version 2 little tiny charts, and now they're immediately just version 3. And they all seem to be working. I mean, they all pop open. It's just that they're small. So, that's one of those things where you may end up adjusting some sizes and stuff. But
no, it's okay. I just want to know. Thank you very much. They look great. I actually used them for a while, and they actually looks very, very nice. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
When's the rollout?
Yeah, so it is going to be available in this Friday's update. And so that'll be the 5.10 release. If you've been hanging out with us recently, starting in about January, February, we started a weekly cadence of releases. So every Friday we have an update that's available, and it'll be available in this Friday's update. So depending on what your company's process for getting Thrive updates and running those is, that's when it will be available. And then if you have to go through, some dev environment testing first, or whatever your process is, just let us know. But it will be available on Friday.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. This is one of multiple series that we'll have on reporting. So this was kind of the kickoff. Wanted to show it holistically. We'll have future ones that'll drill into specifics within it. So watch for those. They'll probably be more frequently than our every other month-ish one we've been having. So if you have other people you want on the webinar list, or you need anything at all, feel free to send us a note at support@leantech.com, or if you have one of us as a contact that you work with, just send us a note. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.